Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back. We are about to start our last session. My name is Renbin. I'll be your chair for this remaining of this afternoon. Our next speaker is Nell Meshcheryakov. Okay. She is the Senior Director of Strategic Operations and Initiatives at Strategic Education, Inc., and serves as the Ethical AI Lead for the AI Center of Excellence. In her talk today, Balancing Innovation and Ethical Impact, a guidebook on responsible use of AI, Nell will delve into the complexities of integrating AI into business and society while safeguarding ethical standards. Please welcome Nell. Let me turn on the mic. Can everybody hear me? Yay! All right, well, as you can see, I'm Dr. Nell Meshcheryakov, and I'm going to be talking about some ethical AI, which is what we should all be striving for, by the way. All right, so this is actually a question that I think about a lot. What happens when the machines we create begin making decisions for us? It's one of many questions, but yeah. It's a good question to ask, right? So my name is Nell Meshcheryakov, as I pointed out, and my passion is responsible AI. So from my dissertation in bias and algorithmic bias and machine learning back in 2021, which feels like a really long time ago, to now the work that I do for the AI COE in the ethics space at my company, I've been passionately interested in this topic. And it's funny because, as a few people up here before me have said today, it feels kind of like it's having its second fashion moment. You know how like midriffs and mom jeans were kind of cool in the 80s and then now they've come back? I kind of feel like we're at that moment with ethical AI, although for me it's been always. I'm honored to speak with you today. I'm a fierce supporter and advocate of women in technology. And when I heard that Cathy O'Neil was going to be here on the stage, and I've heard from all the wonderful speakers today, not only that, but apparently an Incubus video was shot here, which seems like a hard act to follow. I was really intimidated and also empowered, right? So in all seriousness, though, I'm super proud to be here speaking to you all and super proud to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about. And thank you for all the facilitators of this event. It's really been really cool. So this talk aims to give you 10 things that you can do to make sure your AI, or at least to make the chances higher that your AI is ethical. So let's go ahead and get into it. Oh, weird. Huh, I don't know why this is here. It must be for a different presentation. Anyway, AI. So I feel like we need to level set because I come to these kind of conferences and sometimes people don't realize that AI is actually big and it's been around for a while. So basically AI is the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior. And there's a lot of main branches. It's not just LLMs. It's not just Gen AI, even though that is the topic du jour. We have NLP, computer vision, robotics, neural networks. There's a lot of pieces of this, and it's ever evolving. This is not even all of the branches. I'm not going to talk about this a ton, but I did want to put it up there for two main reasons. One, to point out, you'll notice 1950, Alan Turing. He came up with something called the Turing test, and then in 1955, artificial intelligence was coined. That seems like a really long time ago, because it was. It was a super long time ago. We think about this as a brand new field, but it's actually years old. Weird fact about this, you can see we had sort of an AI winter from 1965 through 2009, when AI became, it moved from the theoretical to the more practicable. But Ian Goodfellow, weird kind of full circle moment. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, maybe in 2018, and met him. And in the room were 100 other super nerdy AI peeps, and back then it wasn't super cool. But I feel like talking about him on stage, when I'm talking about ethical AI, I've kind of come full circle. One more shout out here. I want you to look at 1837. If you'll look, this was the first design for a programmable machine. I want to give a shout out to my lady and my gal, Ada Lovelace, who's the first female computer programmer. So all of you women in this room, when people tell you you're not supposed to be here, you have a really good example to throw up as to why you belong here, right? Let's go ahead and talk about AI generally. So it's not a new concept. It is transformative. It's not only LLMs. It's all around us. My husband was talking about buying a fridge that had AI in it. So it's everywhere. Kids are learning about AI and robotics in school. There's AI curriculum. Microsoft even has a Copilot key on their new keyboards, which is something I learned recently. So let's go ahead and go over an example to exemplify another point in history that might give context to this exciting time. All right, so in the 1970s, if you owned a business, you employed an accountant or a bookkeeper, and they would keep these meticulous paper. Does anybody know what paper is? We still know what that is? Paper spreadsheets of meticulous handwritten notes, right? And all of these things would equal out to the accounts. And if you made a mistake, you had to go back, erase it with something called an eraser, weird, and then recalculate it all. It was incredibly time-consuming. Then a magical thing happened. A technology called the spreadsheet was created. And everybody was freaking out, especially accountants, because they were like, oh, they're coming for my jobs. This is not going to be good. Oh, no. Everybody thought it would delete jobs. But actually, if you look at the chart, it kind of created, you see a downward movement of accountants and bookkeepers, but you see creation of whole new areas. You see a refinement of the profession, and it created different jobs than what was before. So, and now we have a world where Excel is not a revolutionary technology and a normal part of professional life. Where somebody tells you to do a quick task in Excel and it turns into a 3-hour existential crisis where you're really thinking about your job choices. But seriously, like Excel, AI is a technology. We should use it. We should not be scared of it. We can choose to adopt it or not, but either way, it's in our lives to stay. We need to get something out of the way first. Ethical responsibility is a non-negotiable in AI's evolution. I'm going to repeat it again. Ethical responsibility is a non-negotiable in AI's evolution. So I'm going to quickly talk about bias. I know all of you know what bias is, but we're going to talk about that because it's integral to talk about the rest of this speech. First of all, like I said, bias is not theoretical. Bias refers to the systematic and unfair favoring or disadvantaging of a key group of people in the outcomes of an AI system. And it is inherently present and a societal reality. It exists. It exists with or without AI. It has and it will. So let's talk about some real-world examples about this. So the first time I ever heard a story about the limitations of machine logic and potential bias was actually from this really smart lady, Finale Doshi. She's a professor at Harvard and also a great mom. Shout out to her. But if you guys are interested, she talks about this example in her TED Talk in Boston, and TED Talk Boston on the subject, and I highly recommend it. But what I will talk about is she was using machine learning to solve a specific problem, and what she wanted to do was create a predictive model to predict mortality in a hospital based on hospital records. So she gathered everything, all the data points that you could possibly gather, and it's a pretty cool objective to do. Spent months getting all this data together, labeling it, training the model. They were all, after they had kind of done their tests and kind of seen the effects of the model, they were delighted to find that they were able to predict death with alarming accuracy. Everybody's like, we're on to something, oh my goodness. So after months of doing this, they're like, high five, 95% accuracy, this is awesome. What they didn't realize, and Finale talks about this, she was smart enough to say, okay, but this doesn't seem right. So they peel a layer back. And actually, the model wasn't looking at any of the data. It was looking at one specific word. Does anybody know what that word might be? Oh, no? Anybody? No? Okay, it was chaplain. So they figured out that in a patient's chart, if you called for the big guy, the chaplain, then probably things were going to go south, and that probably meant that things, weren't going to go well for that patient. This was an inadvertent form of bias, but it's still bias and highlights the need to evaluate and analyze every part of the process when using machine learning models to predict behaviors that impact life. So in a more overt form of bias, in 2016, researchers from Boston University and Microsoft uncovered that AI could have sexist and racist biases. This seems like it's like common sense to us, but back then, computers were thought to be unbiased. People thought that by using these systems that they could delete the biases that came with being a human. So they focused on word embeddings, and so for example, if a tech company wanted to find candidates with programming skills, word embedding could recognize that computer programmer was tied to words like JavaScript or AI. And they specifically looked at an embedding called Word2Vec, which had been trained on news articles. Well, as you can guess, what's the problem with news articles? Bias, yay. So when they tested it, the embedding revealed some troubling patterns. When they looked at he was associated with architect, financier, boss. When they looked at she was associated with homemaker, nurse, or receptionist. You can easily see how these kind of biases can play themselves out into real-life examples. Another example of bias is a pretty common example. It was a system called Compass that was meant to predict recidivism in prisoners up for parole. And what it would do is basically before, they'd have this whole team of people who would decide, based on the person's record, how likely they were to commit a crime, so that would kind of consider their parole terms. Well, they decided, okay, well, computers aren't biased. Let's go ahead and use a computer algorithm to do this for us. In 2016, ProPublica revealed that the algorithm often flagged Black individuals as higher risks for recidivism, while predicting lower risks for white individuals with similar records. So this is believed to be due to the historical data that they were feeding this model, which had historical bias. Weirdly enough, discrimination present in the parole decisions of years of prisoners made its way into the algorithm. So why is this important? How does it impact me? bear with me for a second, and let's imagine that you're a young professional. You've graduated, you've got your nice little diploma, you've got all the right recommendations, you got all the good grades, you graduated from a great school, so you start the work of applying for jobs. Now, imagine that you didn't get any callbacks, and after months you were wondering what happened. Well, it's not about, let's say that it wasn't about anything that you did, it's about things that are beyond your control, like gender, name, or race. So this is actually not that far-fetched. Ethical behaviors create societal trust. So we have to work towards trust with society. So how do we do this? How can we be a good human? Let's go over 10 things really quickly to create and maintain responsible AI. The first thing, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. In the context of AI and machine learning, if you feed bad data to a machine, the output's not going to be great. So you need to ask questions, think critically, get an interdisciplinary group to kind of look at these things and make sure that you're not perpetuating bias, because the data really is important here. Consider using synthetic data, but don't blindly use synthetic data. Bias can present itself in any part of the AI model: data, algorithm, training, output, and interpretation. So be mindful of each of these spaces to help ensure ethical models. Number 2, it is my strong belief that you need collaboration of many voices to create effective AI. One of the things I love about AI is how interdisciplinary it is. So get IT, DI, legal, security, and HR, in addition to data science voices at the table. Create comprehensive model. We need to think deeply on what we're trying to accomplish and what the best, most ethical way to get there is. The more diverse voices at the table, the less likely bias will slip by. Okay, number 3, the buck stops here. This was actually a plaque on Truman's desk that basically called for accountability and leadership, but I am relating this to accountability in our models. We need documentation, training data details, model characteristics, performance limitations to help ensure that if something is found, it can be understood and fixed, especially in high-risk scenarios like healthcare and criminal justice. Number 4, auditors are friends. So, and in my mind, I said not food because I have small children. Friends, not food, from Finding Nemo. But seriously, audit systems regularly throughout the life cycle, not just at the beginning. Bias can creep in and present itself at any point. Make systems to audit. AI systems are great at picking out trends that would be difficult, if not impossible, for humans to pick out. So continually edit and audit these systems and bake this process in. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So good old Ben Franklin said that, but have a specific plan for what to do if you find bias in your model. Be like glass, yo. I say this, but transparency is really important. Use transparency when you are creating the models, how you're creating the models, share that, share the data. We have to create a world where we are transparent, because if we are not, then bad things happen. Also, choose vendors that are transparent with the data. Guess what? If we push forth that as a need, then people will respond to it. Use explainable AI. Number 7, keep humans in the loop. What I mean by this is humans need to be a part of this equation. We can't have AI deciding AI from AI interpreting AI. So keep humans in the loop. Number 8, I say this partially because I'm obviously involved in an AI COE, but have an AI COE. alongside legal and others, create clear policy at your company. Have boards within the AI COE to make decisions. Create communities of practice to promote sharing. And use the COE to make sure you and others stay abreast of all the changes. We heard from someone before that there's lots of changes happening in this part. All right. What about regulation? Raise your hand if you think AI should be regulated. Okay, I'd say probably 80%. So as we can see, big topic, big need. The last slide I really want to point out is that we have to demand regulation because it's necessary. And then lastly, number 10, please be a good human. Use your humanness to create policies around AI that make us stronger together rather than apart. All right, thank you so much. If you would like to connect with me, my stuff is up there, and I'd love to take some questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Meshcheryakov. We will now open for Q&A, and you can keep asking questions until 3:45, so plenty of time.
Thank you. First, thank you for the presentation. It was really nice. So I think now or in the future, AI is going to be making really important decisions. So my question goes, with these important decisions, there will be sometimes that decisions will be harmful for people or for companies. So who take the responsibility of these decisions? Will be engineers, developers, will be the organization, or who will be? I don't know.
First of all, I was hoping somebody would ask me that question because I didn't get to talk about an example that I always talk about at these kind of events. When automobiles came out, guess what? They killed a lot of people. How many of you own a car? Okay, so regulation was really needed in that example. A lot of people were like, well, who should regulate? How should we regulate? Everybody knew we needed regulation, right? So I think in this scenario, we have to figure out whether it's a separate policy entity within our federal government, whether it's state-run, whether it's both. We have to figure out what that looks like because we will get to a future sooner rather than later where AI systems are making decisions based off of AI systems. So we have to talk about this now. Great question. I think everybody just wants their drink at the place. I don't blame you guys. It's great.
So being a big proponent of regulation and transparency within AI, who do you think should step in and certify and help regulate this, especially in the healthcare sector?
Yeah, so my sort of area in the world and the thing that I do day to day is not the healthcare realm, but I talk to a lot of experts in the healthcare area. I think when we're thinking about problems that are pervasive and huge like this, it probably needs to come from a federal level. Like when you're thinking about cars, you know, cars could be very impactful negatively if not regulated. I think we have to figure out, you know, what that looks like at the federal level for AI. And I think that there's been great forays into that. Like we have, you know, of course, like Colorado is coming up with some cool stuff. We've got, you know, the AI ethics sort of bill that, you know, was an executive order by Biden. And we've got, you know, the European AI initiative, but I think GDPR, but I think there's still more work to do. Luckily, we have some really good examples in other places, and we can see how that works and adopt and modify for us, but we have to start somewhere.
All right, we have a question from one of the virtual participants. From your spreadsheet example, are you suggesting job loss to AI is mostly fear-mongering and AI will simply evolve our work instead?
I think what I tried to exemplify, but maybe not as well as I thought I did in my head, was that while job loss is probably going to happen, other jobs will be created because of AI that do not exist today. So like while overall bookkeeping went down, accountants went down, there were other areas like data science completely created out of the Excel spreadsheet. So, and back then it was VisiCalc. But I believe in any great innovation, there's some people that the jobs will vastly change and adapt, but largely we've seen this happen over and over again. The Industrial Revolution lost a lot of jobs, but guess what? It created a whole bunch of other jobs. So we gotta all be agile and adaptable. I love that, whoever asked that online. Good question.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you could speak to this, but where do you see AI, I guess, like, where do you see education evolving with respect to AI? Because, like, if you were to go into ChatGPT, if you could, like, basically ask whatever question you wanted, right? And so it's like, if you were in primary school, how would you see the evolution of AI impacting primary education?
I think actually, I love your question, but I think it's got an impact on all parts of education. I think it's got an impact on primary. It's got an impact on everyone who has a college degree or in college today. I think what that will look like in 5 years is going to be vastly different than what it is today. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because we've looked at education largely as punitive. If you do these bad things with technology and you copy paste from Wikipedia, you get an F or you get expelled from school. Well, I would say now we're forced to kind of look at education a little differently now that ChatGPT is around and you can just kind of ask questions and base your answers off of an output, right? So that might look different in the future. Education might look vastly different, but I think going down to the problem we have to solve, if we want to teach logic or critical thinking in kids, maybe writing an essay on Jane Austen might not be the future. I posit that as a point of view. There's probably a lot more here.
I just have a comment. I have a comment about what you said, that AI is going to be disruptive and that there's going to be people that will lose their jobs, there will be new jobs created. What economists have found with kind of the displacement of the factory workers, and overall there are more jobs created, but the people that are displaced don't actually get retrained, they don't actually move, and they just are without a job. Whole communities are without people who are employed.
Yeah, that's true, and we've seen it historically, right? The Industrial Revolution, I talked about the spreadsheet here. We need to get really good at reskilling people for the future, for not today, but what we see is we'll need tomorrow. I don't know if I have the answers to that question, but I do think it's something that we as a society need to start thinking about, because when we think about computer tasks, we always thought of them as rote manual tasks, automated by computers. We're entering a realm where computers are actually automating some creative tasks that we thought were very human. So we've got to realign and re-engage our thinking to accommodate for the future that we forecast, which will impact some fields. But the new fields can be trained for, and we need to be proactive about that. Nobody else? All right, so connect with me, super excited. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone who put this together. And I look forward to chatting with you all again soon. Thank you.